Hello everybody, and today we are looking at a game played between Banele and Adam Fawzy. Adam Fawzy here with the white pieces, and they played in the Kraaifontein Open. Banele ending with 5.5, drawing some of these top players, but managing a great tiebreak. So beating a very strong Indian player in second place. Um, I am particularly interested in this game because Adam Fawzy didn't place too well in the tournament, and I think it is because of Banele breaking his stride. So, how did this happen? Well, we had one e4, and Banele opens with the Sicilian, and then a move that is not seen too often in this position, c4. And it's called the Staunton-Cochrane variation, and it is not considered very good because it leaves this d4 square very weak. As you can see, the pawns that are meant to control d4 are no longer around, and it's kind of like setting up a Maroczy bind for white, except now you didn't play the open Sicilian, and your queen cannot support the d5 square, as the d4 and d5 square, and the position becomes very inaccessible. But it's clear from this, Fawzy wants a very closed-like game. Not completely sure what he was aiming for. It was a 10+5 game, so I think he wanted to take it quite slowly. But this is not considered such a great variation for white. White's supposed to have like a plus 0.3 advantage in the opening, and immediately we have complete zeros, so obviously not too great. Okay, so Banele plays main line, and we have something of a symmetrical position, both sides fianchettoing the bishops, and then the maneuvering of the knights both to e7 and e2 respectively, and castles. And I think we reached this position where we can compare the two positions and the symmetricalness of each position. And there's only one big difference, and it's this pawn on e4 versus this pawn on e6. Black has got the potential to push for d5, that is the plan. While white can never really push d4. It's kind of closed down, and black's bishop's eyes are very good, um, while white is kind of struggling here. So I'm not a big fan of what Adam Fawzy was trying, and I think this might have led to the bad game he had. But he continues with his plan, and we're still in the main line of the opening. Banele jumping into this large square on d4, and Fawzy trying to get rid of this dark squared bishop of Banele's. Banele goes for a nice idea. He has some queenside space and wants to challenge the queenside very quickly. Bishop h6 and knight e c6. Just controlling this large square on d4. Fawzy trying to trade this dark squared bishop. King takes g7, and a big moment in the game, we reach this position where Fawzy needs to try and decide how to play forwards. And I think by now Banele's really got a great position. Same colored bishops, but way more space than white has, especially because of this knight. More control over the center. Black has got a big piece in the center. If we flip the position, we can kind of see as well how nice this knight over here is. Feels like you're controlling a lot of the game just because of this knight on d4. Its strength cannot be denied, but how to get rid of it? Just another question, can you just leave it hanging there and wait for black to trade himself? It's a good question. If you are a human, I would not suggest it. Just hanging around, playing something like f4 and trying to maneuver around this knight. Black is going to have a nice time just stealing more space. And I'm just going to play out some computer moves here so you can get a feeling of the types of position black can hope for and the type of play that seems to come very naturally. Lots of space for the rooks to move, and knights on good squares, king's safety, while white is super cramped, and this might be playable for a computer. I don't think this is very good for a human. If you do take the knight at the end of the day, I still think black will recapture with the pawn. Just get a large pawn center going, and then this knight is going to be a menace. In any case, something like knight e2. Let's just get another idea. This is what it looks like for black. Super comfortable, playable for a human. And that is what we should be opting for. Not just computer evaluations, but how naturally the play comes for you. So Fawzy in this position decides not to just hang around with the knight there. He takes the knight on d4, and Banele goes for a pawn chain in the center. So this is actually another question. Do you take with a knight or do you take with a pawn? And I think Banele took with the right piece, because in this case you've stolen the space, and now you're going to have a superior knight compared to white knight on e2. If you take with the knight, white can try and trade down this knight, and let's just say, for instance, queen f6. When this knight does trade at the end of the day, sure, white can maybe start play on the queen side. You do have this great pawn, but you don't have the knight to accompany the pawn in the closed position. So this is precisely what Banele goes for. He wants the knight to accompany this pawn in a closed position, and then I think black can actually start playing for an advantage. So nice idea there to take with the c pawn and to create this block over here. Actually, e5 is a novelty. A player before him has opted for b5 for breaking open the queen side. And it's from this position that we have a new game. Very exciting stuff. e5 is the move that Banele chose. We have f4 trying to crack open the center. This double pawn is great. It's just supporting everything. e5, Banele plays on the queen side. And now f5, quite an accuracy here by Fawzy. This actually allows c takes b5, and this check, which seems like it's going to accompany a queen h6 mate, actually doesn't. And if you try queen h6 now, you just have the simple rook defending g7, and all your pieces are lighting up, attacking pawns of white's, while white still needs to recapture a pawn. So Adam's mate threat wasn't really there. You could have gone b takes c, and after d takes c, now you just have this fantastic position where I think something like queen to b6 is threatening d3 check to pick up the piece, and also just breaking through on the b file. Banele really could have gone a bit deeper here in this in the previous position after f5. He could have decided not to care about this mate threat, gone a bit deeper. I mean, he had 8 minutes, 52 seconds to figure this one out, but he trusted the GM, which he maybe shouldn't have done, and he played f6, and we reach equality again. Although I do like Banele's position more. You have this great pawn chain in the center. Rook a c1, e takes c4 now, and after rook takes c4, not taking with a pawn because you don't want to allow any of these tactics, we do have queen to b6. Rook c1 saying take my pawn, but I'll take your knight, and just bishop to d7 defending the knight. And now b4. Actually, b3 would have been just fine, playing more slowly, but b4, Fawzy trying to play dynamically. Actually, yet again, Banele could have gone a bit deeper. Here was an empty threat by the GM. Still Banele, 8.5 minutes, plus 5 seconds per move. Should have gone a bit deeper. And said to himself, you know what, this isn't actually a threat. I can go for the pawn. Because after rook b1, supposedly just spinning the piece and attacking it 3 times, I can play a5, and after you want to really exploit it with a3, then I've got this beautiful move, bishop to b5. A tricky find, but I believe it's perfectly capable. Banele will be perfectly capable of playing like this in the future after he realizes that not everyone knows what they're doing. Bishop b4 with the tricky idea of after a takes b4 and supposedly losing 2 pieces for a rook, that you've got this d3 check at the end of the line. And actually, I didn't check too deep. I didn't ask myself what about this move. I think d takes c5 is good enough. And maybe after moving the knight away, this check, yeah, seems good enough. I mean, these 2 passed pawns, a super inactive position. You're picking up this pawn as well, and then these pawns are marching through. White is definitely losing this position. So, okay. So bishop b5, very tricky find, and the point is that if you look at the position closely, this rook doesn't actually have any squares to go to, and if it retreats all the way to c1, then this pawn on d3 can be captured. Black is having the game, definitely winning this game. Okay, so let's go back. Banele trusted this b4 advance of whites, and this is just saying I'm going to play a3 and maybe have some space and not worry about piece activity on your behalf. Banele plays rook c8, and he's actually also setting up a bit of a tactic here. So the idea is, well, here the GM played a3 just to defend the pawn, but he could have actually, in fact, he could have gone a4, I guess. No, g4. Sorry, g4. And the point is here that Banele can go for the pawn, but after g4, you've solidified the king side. Here's the point. After knight takes b4, we have rook to b1 still not working because now we just have a rook trades and there's not enough pieces to exploit the spin. But you can play rook takes c8 yourself, and after the rooks trade, now rook to b1, rook to c2, and we get this tricky position where actually black needs to take this knight immediately. If you're going to trade queens, you're actually just dead lost. After recapturing this knight, now white has got this thin picking up a piece. So, I mean, Fawzy also had the opportunity here to go a bit deeper, try and get in the move g4, and call the bluff on Banele's tactic, because knight takes doesn't work after the rooks trade. Sorry, after one rook trades and the other one recaptures, then we just have rook b1. It's complete equality. Instead, Banele goes a5, which is also a good idea. Attack this majority on white's queen side, the 2 pawns. And after the trade, this pawn is now isolated and not worth a lot. We have rook to b4, and pieces are kept on the board. Some maneuvering and trades. And at the end of the day, after the trades, black is slightly better. It's weird because it doesn't really make too much sense. White has got this outside passed pawn, and black's got this doubled up pawn. But black's king is super comfortable, and black's got this huge file to work with pieces that are both slightly better than white's pieces. And this pawn is actually just going to drop off of the board, doesn't have enough protection. Black will coordinate extremely comfortably against that pawn. That's why the computer is giving a -1 evaluation. It's saying black is going to be up this pawn over here. Okay. We have g4 solidifying the king side by Fawzy, and queen to b3. g5, you need to start somewhere in the game. It feels like white hasn't had an opportunity up till now. g5 is an attempt, and f takes g5, followed by, I think, knight g3 or something like this would have been better, just to keep tension, recapture this pawn later when the d3 pawn is secured. But instead, bishop h3, trying, I guess, to get f4 and maybe f6 check later on. But once the g pawn to move so that queen g5 can come in and stuff like that. But in fact, Banele here could have just played king f6, holding on to everything. This would have been quite a badass move. And I'm not sure how deep you need to go to find this move, because the immediate threats don't seem to do a lot. And this little computer line seems to show that everything's okay. Even if white does manage to get this check, the only good square is queen to f8. And you can just keep the queen out, which is, this might be more tricky to find. But black completely in control over here. So this would have been fun to see this king move. Banele not going for it. Instead just playing bishop to e8, and we have the bar jumping up and down again, back to equality this time. Queen check, bishop f1, and now h6. And I think, yeah, it's some trades, bishop takes g6. I think the main point to make about this game is that the center was completely closed the whole time, and black had maneuverability, which is going to pay off now, as you see. Finally, one player will break, and it's usually the player that had the less space throughout the game, the more difficult time. Knight f5 check, seems like you're putting your knight on a nice outpost, but after king f8, black still has this tempo, and you really need to ask yourself, what is this knight really doing? Black is the one control here. The queen to f2, and now just simply knight e6. And here I had one or two questions. What happens after knight to d6? Knight takes d6, supposedly threatening queen takes f7 checkmate. It's pretty simple. Banele's plan is just to go knight to f4. And here he's threatening knight to h3 check. So you can go knight takes f7, but then you're losing your queen. This bishop is pinned. So you have to deal with this threat immediately. So something like king h1. And now Banele enters bishop h5, and we're going to pin this bishop to the king. And there's not much white can do here. Black's completely in control. So a little tactic here, a very cute idea. And h3, Fawzy spots this tactic, so he wants to get his king out of here. King h2. And Banele is the one with more space and starts pressing forward. There are no threats at the moment. You've got time to go queen a1, knight takes, queen takes, and knight retreats. Knight takes f7 would have maybe been a better try, but Banele is completely in control here. It's not clear how white's going to play forwards, and it's because of this nice this nice pawn chain that's still protecting everything. This bishop is now as bad as it can get with this knight completely controlling it. This king's going to find a comfortable position, and Black's queen is very comfortable as well and active. Okay, so we have knight f5, just trying to keep pieces on the board, and h4. We have queen to b2, but this unfortunately allows a queen trade. Here, Fawzy didn't have a lot of time, and it's not clear what you're doing. After queen b2, the queens were traded, and because of the pawn that Banele was up, and because of this comfortable position, he wins another pawn. There's no coordinating to defend this pawn. Fawzy tries a bit, and after this bishop is traded, we can see that this game is completely hopeless, with Black being up too many pawns, all of them easily defended, and they're just marching through. Not much to do here. King f4, I think this is the final move of the game. The knight needs to move, and oh no, this is final move of the game. These pawns marching forward. White's king needs to defend the d pawn. The knight needs to defend these pawns, but they're moving forwards on their own. One knight can't stop them both, and Black's king and knight are very close and just helping those pieces through. This is a very good game by Banele. I don't think he ever allowed White to have an advantage, as we can see here. When he did blunder, it was at least not blundering the edge away, so we get the feeling of Banele really starting to play for two results here, looking for positions that are equal or better for himself, and just keeping that pressure there from the start. Look at this great opening and pushing through till the end. But what would be nice is to see some more aggression, and especially in the early stages of the game, calling your opponent's bluff, especially when they're a GM. It's a tricky thing, easy to say but tricky to do, but Banele can live up to our standards or expectations of him. In any case, thanks for watching. I'm going to be covering more of the Kraaifontein Open games soon, so please subscribe to the channel if you want to follow them, and I will see you guys soon. Thanks.